Welcome to the New School Real Estate Pod. This is a podcast for real estate agents everywhere who are looking to start from scratch or relaunch their business. Our goal is to bring you an amazing guest every single episode who will share something that you can implement in your business today. Let's get into our newest episode. Welcome back, everybody, to our latest episode. As always, it is your co-host, award-winning sales representative, Rob Marsiglio, and I'm joined by...
It's Gabriel Batista, award-winning representative as well. And we have a really cool episode coming up. We got someone who doesn't do anything for a living. He doesn't work. He goes on vacation all the time. We had to, it was tough getting him on this thing because he was always away. So we have Dan Losier, and we thank you for coming on the podcast today, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me. And it was, I'm sorry, it was tough to kind of fit this in between my leisure activities. But listen, I'm happy I made it. I'm very happy I made it.
I'm just happy. Yeah, I'm happy you took it so well, Dan. Gabe saying that because he said some questionable things to us in the past where it's like,
I've said some pretty, yeah.
If we want to have them back on, it might be tough to get them. So thank you for just laughing those comments off. And yeah,
you're very welcome. You're very welcome, Matt. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what? Worst comes to worst. If I say anything that offends you, Dan, just open up your office door, punch me in the face, and go back in because.
You're right across the hall, so
great YouTube. That's good YouTube content right there. I like that.
Yeah, it's okay. It wouldn't be the first time, but yeah.
Right on. So what do you guys want to talk about?
You know what?
You, Dan.
Me? Okay.
Your award-winning self, right? Award-winning, correct? We're not wrong in saying that.
Award-winning. Yeah, I mean, like I've won a few awards. I don't think that those are I wouldn't say that those are my greatest achievements. In life, I got a few other ones, like a beautiful family, 2 awesome kids, that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I'm proud of the work that I've done in real estate. And it's definitely one of those things where I think that when you get into the business, you definitely have very, very big hopes and aspirations. And it can be pretty demoralizing, but I think that I'm definitely probably a poster boy for stick-to-itiveness and just kind of like being as consistent as possible for an inconsistent person, and just I guess not really giving up, and just kind of persevering despite all the attempts to give up. So
we definitely got to dig into that. So
okay,
just to start, give us kind of the summary of your career so far. How many years in the business? How has your business journey been so far? How did you start and such?
Yeah, for sure. So this is my 11th year. So I was licensed in January 2011, and before that I was in hospitality actually. And it was interesting, right? Because, I was in a business where it was every evening and weekend, going to another business of evenings and weekends. But, I kind of made a decision, a very easy one, by working with, working under a chef that I just didn't align with. And my passion for the industry was wavering. And I come from a real estate family as well. So it was, I kind of looked at it as transitioning from one service industry into another, and then also having the exposure through my family of real estate, and kind of understanding the lifestyle and the freedom that it can afford you if done properly, I guess. It just seemed to be kind of a natural progression. So, I kind of undertook getting my license. It took me about 1.5 years because I was also working full time while getting it. And right off the hop, like one thing that I knew, that was super, super important for me and very clear was that when I got into the business, I knew that I wanted to mentor, or mentee, I should say. I knew that I wanted to either join a team or be under a very kind of guided mentorship with someone, because albeit, my family was in the business, they're not residential real estate. They're in kind of commercial industrial development. And that was not where I was headed. I was heading into kind of residential real estate, and I wanted to just understand how to do this from the ground up and learn it properly, and have the opportunity to to accelerate my career. So that's kind of what I did, and it was interesting. I think I interviewed at 2 places, 2 or 3 actually, because going to a RIA, like our office is directly across the street, so I went to the career night, and that was kind of cool. And then a friend of mine had a good buddy of his that was actually at an old Keller Williams office that's now closed. And he kind of like set me up with a meeting, and I met with the TL, and that's how I ended up meeting my my mentor. And then I also interviewed with, or kind of met with Royal LePage Your Community, and they did something that was like really similar to, I guess, like a disc test, something like that, whatever it was. It was like a kind of, I don't know, one of those personality tests where they try and kind of understand, you know, are you a good fit? Are you going to be a good realtor? And sadly, my perspective for being successful is really low.
How low, Dan?
They didn't want to take me on. they did not. It had nothing to do with being a new agent. It just, when I kind of, it was interesting because when I read it, I was like, wow, this is gutting. Like, it was kind of like, wow, because you're kind of like so full of piss and vinegar when you're starting a new career. And you've already spent 2 years like going through the motions of trying to get your license. And then just to show up there and then be like, sorry, you just don't got what it takes. Just like kind of give up now. And it was interesting too, because like a buddy of mine ended up working at that office, and he had like their TL general manager remembered meeting with me, and it was like, he was a big regret we didn't hire him, because I ended up going back there a few years later, just to kind of shoot the breeze with my buddy, and I ran into Jack and we were kind of chatting, and he's like, yeah, it was a big regret, but anyway, whatever. It passes the past. Here we are today.
You got to send this podcast, eh?
I was going to say, was the report like accurate? How it broke you down, or was it?
You know what? So, like, if I'm being really honest, there, to a certain degree, there was a lot of accuracy there. You know, because, you know, for my entire life, like I've been one of those people who's like, he's got great potential, you know, but like hard. We don't know how to focus him. Like, that's been like the story of my life, right? And I think that there was that kind of peppered through that report.
Sure.
And if I'm being super honest, like, yeah, that is some of the biggest struggle that I've had in this business, is the self-motivation and the discipline, you know, to kind of like, once again, just to kind of drive forward in this business. It's a hard thing. Like, being self-motivated is not everyone's jam, which is why not everyone's geared to being self-employed. But I think that like it's heavily balanced by my stubbornness.
Okay.
So, you know, in my unwillingness to just kind of give up, and you know, so maybe that's vanity. I don't know what it is. But yeah, that's and I mean, like, fast forward 11 years, and here I am, right? I would never have, I'd never change a thing. And I think it's, you know what, I have a gratitude journal that I write in, where one of the things that constantly shows up and things that I'm grateful for is being my own boss. Having the opportunity to kind of do this over and over again, having the opportunity to do reovers, not kind of like step into like a Groundhog Day sort of situation like I was in for years working in the kitchens, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, just very, very grateful for the decisions that I've made, and the people that surround me and help me kind of achieve.
And how did you grow? So you're now at, you know, the KW that you ended up going with. How did you end up growing your business? How did it start for you? Like, where did you find your groove? What was your big momentum builder when it came to building your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. I built my business off of cold calling, because I just didn't really know anything else. And my mentor, he started his business, like he started his sales journey selling audio equipment door to door. And so it was like, you know, door knocking, cold calling, like all that sort of stuff, you know, really direct kind of in-person sales stuff. And that was, to be honest with you, like I never really relied on friends and family and sphere for business. I've been let down plenty of times, right? So I figured I might as well just go and like talk to people that I don't know. And I think I kind of found cold calling easy. And I think it's mostly not from necessarily from the standpoint of like the fear of rejection, but I think just in my ability to make small talk and have very quick, high rapport generating conversations easily with people. And literally kind of like how it started was, you know, my mentor, you know, trying to figure out how to be a mentor and not just feed me deals, because I think, you know, especially, you know, 10 years ago, the model for joining a team was, we're just going to feed you deals. We're just going to feed you deals, right? And I think that, you know, that's changed quite a bit now. But he wanted to get me bringing deals in. So he handed me, he showed me how to use Canada 411 and reverse lookup. And we just like put in an address, pulled up all of that. And I just started cold calling. He basically said, just say this to people, like, here's a little script, he handed me a Mike Ferry sales book and was like, here's the script. And he's like, repeat it, call people and talk to them about real estate and tell them that you've sold something because this is a house that we sold, whatever. And that's kind of how it happened. And I remember, like, this was like before we had an auto dialers. I was like manually dialing all these numbers.
Right.
And it was wild. Like, like we'd be, we'd be there for like 6-7 hours just dialing numbers, just talking to people. And then all of a sudden I started getting leads. I started meeting people and bringing listings to the table and that, which was great because, I could barely close a door. So it was good. I had like this guy who was just like a sales machine coming in. I feel like I'd find a lead, I'd go there and meet with them. These people just wanted to see the person that they actually spoke to and set the meeting and got them to agree to meet with, right? And then I let him do all the talking.
Right.
And he would just close them. Like it was incredible. And I remember like in the first 6 months that I was licensed, I made like 3 times more than I'd ever made working in a kitchen, in a year, right? So, the impetus to kind of stick with it and kind of like develop this skill of being able to talk to people and learn how to objection handle was really there. And that, to be honest, like that is just what I kind of parlayed into the kind of the rest of my career. I didn't stay on a team for very long. And it's not to say that like there wasn't value in staying on the team. I just think that once again, like one of those situations that, kind of showed up really frequently in my life was that I'm a difficult person to harness, right? Like, like the potential's there. But, it's very, and someone like a good family friend who's known me my entire life said this to me years ago, like well before I ever got into real estate, but I think I was maybe 16 or 17. He goes like, you're never going to work for anyone else but yourself.
Right.
Like, that's just the person you are. Like forget about forget about this. And interestingly enough, he was also in the hospitality industry and owned many restaurants. It was like, I see your journey. I know you love to cook. I know this is kind of where you're heading. He's like, you're never going to work for anyone else. And it's true because, I'll be vulnerable here and let everyone know that I've been fired from every single job I've ever held. Like literally every single one. I've never had a client fire me before, which is pretty wild. Like it's awesome. And I think that that's just maybe because careful about who I work with. And I think we end up understanding very early on in the relationship whether or not it's a good fit or not. But yeah, anyone who's ever employed me has not retained me for very long.
There's been an exit of some.
There's been an exit, right? And like I said, coming back to the team, it's not that I think that I didn't there wasn't value in being on the team. I think there's huge value in being in the team, right? But I think at that particular time in my life, and also just some differing business ideologies, like me and my mentor, we were butting heads a little bit on things, and there was a little bit of a power struggle going on and things like that, that it was just time to say, hey, you know what, like this isn't working, I don't think, for either of us. Let's just part ways. I think I'm at the point right now where I have the skills that I've developed over these last couple of years, because I was on a team for about the first 2 years of my career. I have these skills that I've developed that I can, I think, put into practice and take a big gamble on myself and put all of the risk of earning on my shoulders. And that's what I did.
So would you say, because you mentioned getting out of hospitalities, it was getting out of the whole Groundhog Day thing. I think when people get into real estate, they realize it can feel a lot like Groundhog Day. You're getting up, getting rejected daily over and over and over again. Did the team element and that built-in accountability, is that what kind of helped you overcome that kind of Groundhog Day effect, or?
No, I think that's a great question, and I think that you're probably right. Like, and just if I understand you correctly, it's just having seen structure, understanding what structure needs to be in this business, and how to kind of is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing, I got into working with the team because I thought it would be nice to have some insight to how this business actually works and how someone who actually produces, generates business, how they talk to clients, this, that, and the other, right? So I think that's what the team kind of gave me. And I think that I learned very quickly after going on my own that you do get into a lot of Groundhog Day, right? Because when you have no business, like what I often tell people is that, like, you're not in sales. You're really not in sales. You're in the client acquisition business, is what you are. You're there to generate rapport and convince people to trust you, right? Whether you're trustworthy or not. Like that's really what your role is, right? Is to do it. And then you're a marketer. And then somewhere down the line is you're in sales, right? So I learned, I was like, that it's a grind. Yeah, there was a lot of Groundhog Day, but when we talked about my leisure lifestyle, is that I'm very good at deciding when not to work. I'm very good at guarding personal time, possibly to my detriment, but I'm very good at that. And I think that, as much as I had a lot of guilt around saying, like, hey, like, I'm not going to work today, what I ended up actually becoming very good at early on was I knew where to spend my time. And then I also kind of knew that I didn't need to spend so much of it doing this to get the result. Meaning, like, if I just went into the office and, I took Bold and all those other courses that kind of like give you some metrics for like how many contacts you need to make and this, that, and the other. And there's some validity to that. But what I kind of understood early on was, like, if I just like went into the office and I cranked out my phone calls, I hit my contact and I put it in, it could be 2:00 and I could take off for the rest of the day. I could go sit on my patio and hang out and, go meet my girlfriend for lunch or like whatever it was, right? Like I could do that. And I remember telling Jamie Purvis that, and I don't know if you guys know who Jamie Purvis is, but he used to be one of the TLs at our offices, and he's like an amazing guy. He's kind of started this coaching company, the BD.
He's a guest on a prior episode, actually, Dan. We should have prefaced all that.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. But yeah, no, he's awesome, right? And I remember like telling him that, and they're like, you believe Dan's taking off? Like all the guys, I used to share an office with other guys. Like, Dan's taking off, Jamie. And it's only like 2:00. And I was like, but I hit all my calls, and he's like, Jamie was just like, and it gave me a lot of validation. He's like, Jamie hit my calls. I did all my calls, and then he's like, but Dan, there's nothing left for you to do but go home and enjoy the rest of your day. And
right.
I took it very seriously, right? So that's kind of how I broke up the monotony of it a little bit. And that kind of Groundhog Day was that I started to understand how flexible your schedule could be in real estate, and how, like, if I was just like, okay, if I just suffer through and I put this time in and I kind of hit that goal, I know, and I'm doing it consistently, because that's what I was doing. It was like every day. It was just consistent. Then I could duck out at like 2:00, 3:00 sometimes. I didn't have to go and, kind of burn the midnight oil or make evening cold calls or whatever it is. Like I know a lot of my counterparts did.
Mm-hmm. And now you're probably at the point where, well, I know you're at a point where you can pick and choose when you want to work, or pick and choose what hours of the day you want to work. Where was that transition for you? Was there a certain point? I know you mentioned that, with time, you kind of realized you didn't have to work all these hours a day, but what was the turning point for you where you realized, I don't want to be working these hours. I want to, time block vacation. I want to time block, my evenings for my kids. What was that point for you?
To be honest, like there wasn't a specific time where I was just like, no, this is how I'm doing it. Like I'm a very, like, I struggle with being regimented, and it's, it's, a decade later and I'm still just like, the lights are now just kind of going off on how to kind of structure this. And I think I'm kind of being forced into it more so now than I was beforehand, because I have kids, and it's important for me to be there in the morning. It's important for me to be there when they come home, to pick them up from daycare and have dinner with them. Like it's just really important time with them, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, to answer your question, Gabe, is that like I tried so hard not to work weekends. I tried so hard not to work evenings, and it was just one of those things. And I think that, could I have possibly made more money by just throwing in extra hours? Like, yeah, like I guess possibly I could. But I think that there was a quality of life element that I valued a lot. And And like, fortunately enough, like I think I developed my skills early enough on in my career, and maybe there is some gift there a little bit. Of course, we am leveraging some of my talent there to be able to kind of convert and speak to people. But it afforded me a comfortable enough lifestyle where I was, financially satisfied enough to be able to warrant not working the evenings and weekends. Now, it's not to say that I was just like, that was hard and fast rule, like I never worked evenings and weekends, but it's an impossibility. Like, I'm totally an impossibility, right? And I still have to do it now. I just do it on a much more selective basis. And so to answer your question, Gabe, it's been a transition. It's been a slow transition, right? And when I listen, it's easy not to work weekends when you don't got any open houses, like things like that, right? It's easy enough to do it. And to that point, like, it's also easy, like, that if you do have listings and you don't feel like doing open houses, that there are plenty of agents out there that will take your open houses, happily do them for you, right? As long as you're kind of setting expectations with your clients as well, that, like, I may not be available to do all your open houses or whatever it is, right? But like I said, it's more so being very picky and choosy. And I think one of the things that I became very good at was understanding motivation. How motivated are you to warrant me sacrificing this time to take you out and look at houses or this, that, and the other? And I think I learned it a little bit of the hard way. I've worked with a lot of clients, guys, who are just like, it just didn't do anything, right? And I've showed a lot of property people that just didn't do anything, and I kind of like definitely was a Pop-Tart realtor to a certain degree, where you're just like, if someone calls, just like, yeah, I'm on it, like, I'm leaving, I'm going to do it, right? And I think that you end up doing enough of that where you're just like, forget about it, like, like, I'm not going to do it anymore.
You said setting expectations with clients to answer. I just wanted to jump on that more. Like, what does that conversation look like early days with the client?
Well, I actually got really good at it, and I think that the conversation really evolved, especially after having kids. And my kids, I have a 3.5-year-old, right? So go back into like the 8th year of my career, right? And it basically came down to me telling them essentially what my schedule looks like. Mm-hmm. Like, guys, like, I will be, like, I'm available between 9 and 4, and then not again until after 7:30. Mm-hmm. I was like, and one of the things too that I also came to realize that there are no emergencies in real estate. Right. So if someone's like really like blowing up your phone or banging down your door or whatever it is, it's like, they're probably just a nuisance sometimes, Yeah. But like I said, I especially now with buyers and kind of the market that we've been in, it comes down to just setting expectations as to when I'm reachable. Sure. Now, of course, like, we're in a very we can be in a very time sensitive business sometimes, and things happen. So it's not to say that I'm not going to check my phone and, like, if there is something that just needs to be attended to, that I won't attend to it. But I end up setting the expectation early on. Typically, when I consult with them the first time, I'll ask them, like, first of all, how do you like to be communicated with? Is it by phone calls, email, text messages? And if they say phone calls or emails, I'm like, I typically ask for permission that in the event that there's something quick that needs to be shared, do you mind if we share it via text? Or if there's something that needs to be elaborated on, do you mind if we share it over the phone? Mm-hmm. So I kind of set those expectations, and most people are pretty, they're pretty receptive to that. And then I say, in terms of my schedule, you can reach me anytime between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. between 4 and 7:30. It's like I'm unavailable, and then I can be reached again after 7:30 until 9. Mm-hmm. And then I don't talk a lot about weekends, to be honest with them. And I think that that's a discretionary thing, depending on if it's a listing that I really want to do an open house on, or if, I got something going on, whatever it is. Then, when we talk about open houses with them, it typically goes something like where I'll mention, would you like to have open houses? And I talk about the pros and cons of open houses, and I start to let them make their decision on it. And say, and if you like to have open houses, it will be either me or someone from my team or colleagues that will be performing them. Mm-hmm. But rest assured that anyone that's doing it is someone that I've worked with personally that you can trust is going to be able to manage the property properly. And typically people are pretty cool with that, yeah. Right? very infrequently are people like, no, it's got to be you. It's got, it's got to be like this, right? Because, and I think that also comes down to maybe the clients that I attract, right? I think everyone's going to attract their own set of clients. There's going to be a dynamism between your clients based on your personalities, right? And I have to, like, I have some pretty awesome clients. Like, I've had been very fortunate to have some really amazing clients that were probably very much alike in terms of personality type, which is probably why we work well together. And I think that goes a long way in terms of offering each other grace and not necessarily leniency, but once again, like, kind of grace throughout the process, right? And understanding throughout the process, right? Because it is definitely a team sport, right? This is not like no one realtor is flying in there and saving the day, right? Like, it's definitely like it's a co-created relationship that you have with the clients.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned before, like, using, say, a colleague for an open house, and that reminded me of leverage. I know you have a VA, for example, but how have you started using leverage through other agents, colleagues, your VA, in terms of giving back more of your time? How was that process to, gain up that help from other people?
Yeah, there's point in times where, like, I think everyone has different sales cycles, like cycles in your business where you're going to be very busy and then you might slow down. And I think we all strive towards consistency, right? And I think that my business, is subject to the inconsistencies of the real estate market, like everyone else's is. And so I started kind of like throwing in people to kind of do showings for me, do open houses for me, and there. Because sometimes, like, listen, sometimes I'd be carrying more than 1 or 2 or 3 listings at one time. Everyone wants an open house, and honestly, I can only be in one place at a time, right? So I started throwing in the opportunities for agents to, show a property for me here and there. I'll throw you some money, depending on how it went. If it was getting to be a very consistent thing, possibly giving them an equity share in the deal. Whatever it is. And then the same thing with open houses. If I just couldn't be there for the open house, like maybe I would do it on the Saturday, but I couldn't do it on the Sunday. So I'd bring an agent in to do it on the Sunday, or vice versa. Or maybe I was unavailable all weekend because I was away, or whatever it is, right? Then I would bring someone in to do it. And that started a long time ago. I mean, I've been, like, consistently producing a reasonable amount of volume for, I would say, like, the last, I did things really start to kind of click in my 5th year, and then just kind of grew from there. So yeah, for about 6 or 7 years now, I've had enough opportunity just to be able to leverage some of these agents, and a lot of the time, initially a lot of it was because I just wanted to buy some time back. Right? Because, like, God, I wanted a weekend off, or I wanted to go away. And like I said, I like to go away. Like, I don't like to be in the city all the time. But then it kind of came down to more of a need, right? Where what I did realize, especially in the last 2 years, like with the pandemic, is that I had to do a lot more with less time. I didn't have, my demands at home were, with children were just, they were becoming like, they were just increasing, and I didn't have, and also working from home too over the last 2 years, like, there's a lot of disruption, so I had to be much more purposeful with my time. Right. So that's when I started to kind of implement leverage more strategically, and I think that, from when I say strategically, that's more so with people here, like on the ground here in Toronto. But I know, Gabe, you want to talk about ISAs, because that's actually one of the first pieces of leverage, business leverage, that I kind of implemented into my business, where I was cold calling a lot, and it got to the point where I was like, I can't cold call all the time. I got to leverage this out, because what I came to realize is, like, I have a lead problem. My conversion wasn't really the issue. It was the amount of qualified leads I could get my hands on was an issue. And we've been in a very low inventory market for as long as I've been doing this, since 2011. And I think since before that as well. So I had to find a way to kind of implement more leads, just to bring more leads to the table. So, it was, leverage with Agent Locator and doing internet leads. So I had that in play. And then I reached out to a company that does outbound calling. They're based out of the Philippines, and I started hiring one at a time people to just make outbound calls. So whether and the reason I kind of did that was because I could target the areas that I wanted to call, as opposed to with online leads. And maybe I just wasn't doing it properly. Maybe I wasn't getting the right support. I was pretty green with kind of how it all worked anyway. But I really didn't want leads in St. Catharines. Right. I really didn't want leads in Uxbridge. Mm-hmm. I didn't want leads here and there. It didn't make a lot of sense for me. So I found with implementing these ISAs, at least I could say, hey, this is the geographic boundary that I want you to call within, and here's what I want you to say, and go ahead and start calling. And of course, like, that was with a lot of practice. So I would script with them every single day for months, years. Like, I think I scripted every single day with my first ISA for like a year and a half.
Right.
It was part of my own development too, right? It was part of me actually, keeping my skills sharp, but also being able to teach him how to do it and the nuances and so on and so forth, so that he could be successful on the phone. And, like, sometimes things come to an end, and unfortunately, he didn't last. Like, he was with me for about a year, maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then in hindsight, I kind of fired him. I should have just given them more grace.
You're getting back at all your employers from the past.
I'm going to say, you got to fire everyone.
Yeah. Goes around, comes around, right? It's my turn now. Yeah. No, it wasn't that, but I think it came down to professional maturity and having the awareness about like how to manage people properly. And I think that's a journey in and of itself. Like, we could talk about leadership all day, but that was a journey in and of itself. And I think that in hindsight, like, he was actually really good. He's actually the second best one I've ever had, and I've had about 10.
Right.
So, all the other eight were didn't hold a candle to him. And then the one I have now is, to be honest, like, is my unicorn, and she's amazing. And the same thing, like, I spent a long time calling with her and training with her every single day, and to the point where I felt comfortable enough where, she didn't need to speak with me every single day. She had the gist of what she needed to do. She had the skills enough to kind of manage it. And like, honestly, last year, just from her, I think last year, just from the deal that she brought to the table, there was about 120, 130K in GCI, just from the ones that she cultured that we turned over. And she'd only been working with me for, God, like, honestly, I think she started in December of 2020.
I think that Gabe and I have even discussed this. There's two ideas that I have. First, I think it's bringing Dan back for a ISA training episode.
Nice.
And the second is
build unicorns. That's
the
it.
door knockers versus the cold callers. We got to have a little, get in the boxing ring and have Dan go at it with somebody.
Do you know what the thing is? Like, I did a lot of door knocking too, actually, right? And I did a lot of door knocking later on in my career versus cold calling. And to be honest, maybe it was just like maybe like the hiding behind the phone was like a security blanket for me. Like, maybe that's what it was. Like, it was just, like, getting in front of people can be really quite powerful. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you the one thing that unfortunately is, it's always going to lose against cold calling when you're door knocking, is you can't pump the volume out. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And I'm not going to say that maybe there's a higher conversion rate. People don't like to be bothered on the phone, but for that matter, they really don't like to be bothered at the door either.
Right. I
think you're still always going to connect with the people who want to talk to you about real estate anyway, or they're just like really nice people and they're giving you the space, okay, to kind of like to get your spiel out, right?
Right.
But the one thing that kind of kept me on going towards cold calling was just that I could do 1,000 dials. I could do it, and like, and it could be done in a few hours. It was like, you can't knock on 1,000 doors in a day. I mean, you could, but it's gonna take you a really long time. And to be honest with you, it'll be so physically exerting that you just probably not gonna have the gusto to convert anyone by that point.
Your shins would be done. Bad shins.
You're just gonna be like, oh God, please, like, don't answer the door. like just no more. Like, I'll just mark it down like I knocked.
Yeah. I hit that door with my hand. Yeah.
yeah. So like I said, like that was my big reason for kind of going on cold calling versus door knocking. But I think once again, I know some agents, like Austin Keitner, like he's unbelievable amount of business, and his big thing is door knocking.
Right.
Lots of calls. Don't get me wrong, they do a lot of calls to follow up, but like his big thing is door knocking.
Yep. Dan, we've kept you for a while today. We would like to wrap up with one more question, and you may have touched on it early on, and this is just getting back to what the show's about. For the people who are starting new today, who are starting over, let's say you had to start new or start over today, how are you building your business? It's day one again.
Oh my God, what an incredible question. So more networking. Network with a lot of agents. Get to know your colleagues. Go look at more property. Become just really well versed in being able to kind of like gut value property. Like walk in somewhere and be like, that's what I kind of like intrinsically feel like it's worth. Do not be afraid to lift your hand up and ask for help. There's a lot of people who are probably willing to help you. And I think the other one is, find a niche, build a farm. There's something to be said about kind of concentrating your efforts and like as I said, don't spread the jam so thin so you only taste toast, right? like find a place and make it like nice, thick, and juicy for you, right? And kind of dig into it. And I think that's probably, if I had to do it all over again, that's what I would do. And on top of that, like once again, I don't think that joining a team is a bad thing. I think that looking at team environments, it can be a huge opportunity for career advancement. Even if you don't stay with them, but just to understand, to learn to be in an environment like that, I think there's a lot of value there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? A lot of value there, a lot of value that you've provided to us and the listeners today. So we appreciate that. And Dan, thank you so much for coming on again. And everyone listening, thank you for listening. And hopefully you guys come for the next episode. Stay productive, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
And that's the end of our episode of New School Real Estate. Thank you for tuning in and listening to all the great value that our guests had to provide today. Hopefully you can take away one thing from what we spoke about and apply it to your business and truly make it new school. If you are a new or growing agent looking for some supports to grow your real estate business, feel free to reach out to Rob or myself on social media. We'd be happy to have a conversation. But until next time, make it a day and stay busy, my friends.